the Stars losing in the Western Conference Final for the third straight year, and for the second straight year to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, in my very unofficial opinion, Bob, I think that you might be the best Stars tweeter out there on the internet.
Most positive. Most positive.
Most entertaining, that's for sure. But as you lived through this for the third straight year, and really in more of a deja vu way in this 2025 edition, what sticks out to you about why the Stars couldn't get through Edmonton yet again?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's a little different, but in many respects, it's exactly the same, where you go through the season and you see, like Las Vegas is saying, and not the team, but the casinos are saying, the Stars are the favorite to win the Stanley Cup now, and boy, aren't they great? They might be the best team in the NHL, and you're watching them, and you're like, yeah, but what happens if they have to play Connor McDavid for 2 weeks? and he brings all of his friends. What happens then? Are our best players good enough to deal with their best players? And that's really what it boils down to this time of year. I hate to say it's like basketball when you get deep into the playoffs, but this did feel like, well, what happens if you run into like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen? And we now find out again for the third straight year is that the Stars' best players kind of stop scoring. And, once you go down that path and their guys continue to do what they do, which is dominate no matter what you try, well, now you're up a creek without a paddle. So it's unfortunate, but I also don't feel, when you get your heart broken in sports, and I've had it happen a few times, as we all have, usually the best heartbreak is when you are sure you were the best team and you did something dumb to let it get away. I want to say, with all due respect to our Dallas Stars, they weren't the best team. They don't deserve the Stanley Cup. I love them. I wish they did. But in the end, they ran into a better team again, and that stinks. But it's also what's supposed to happen in a 7-game series, right?
Right. And let's get into the decision that kind of will forever mar the later part of the series in Game 5 specifically. 2 goals on 2 shots. That was enough for Pete DeBoer to pull Jake Oettinger. And I think the question through most of our minds was, okay, fine, if it gets away from you early, there's no harm in leaving DeSmith in there. It tightened up. They scored late in the first period to make it 3-1. It was 3-2. That game might be different if Oettinger stays in net and you just let him ride it out. Bob, your thoughts on the decision to pull him and what that means moving forward for this team?
Yeah, my thoughts were I didn't like it. I thought the 2 goals that Andrej allowed were basically defensive breakdowns that didn't have just a whole lot to do with him. And so it felt like something bigger, which, by the way, by the post-game press conference, Pete DeBoer basically told us, hey, guys, it's something bigger than today. This has been going on for 2 years. And essentially you do get the dynamic, and we see this all the time in the NFL with a coach and quarterback. Heck, we saw it with Sean McVay and Jared Goff. We saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan. We've seen this a million times where a guy has a team he thinks can win the title, but the quarterback is holding him back. It's very possible Pete DeBoer thinks this is a Stanley Cup winning team and that Jake Oettinger is holding him back. I don't know if that's true. In fact, I tend to believe it's not, given the fact that the Stars scored 2 goals in 3 games between games 1 and 5. Those 3 games in the middle, which lost you the series, you scored twice. Not twice a game, twice. So to put all that on your goalie is insane to me, and I love Pete DeBoer. Then to not put Oettinger back in like in the first intermission when it's 3-1, that also seemed pretty insane to me. And then, of course, to triple down in the postgame and basically back over him with a bus was the third. And I, if the Stars had a little more hair trigger owner or a little bit more quick to anger GM, it's possible Pete DeBoer has been fired this weekend. But it seems they're very stable as an organization. I think that usually serves them well. They don't make decisions when they're mad, and it appears they are, keeping a smart perspective that it's so darn hard to make a Final Four in this sport or in any sport, and then they've done it 3 straight years. So do you really want to blow that up? Can you find a better coach than Pete DeBoer? If the answers are no, then let's just proceed and keep chipping away, and maybe next year you figure it out, the magic formula, or maybe Connor McDavid retires. Who knows? I mean,
that seems a little premature. It seems a little premature.
It does, yes.
I have to say, I was shocked by his post-game comments about Jake Oettinger, especially given the fact that he was a huge part as to why they even advanced to that point this postseason. Right. But I do have to ask your thoughts on the fact that in yesterday's end of season media availability, he was asked, that is Pete DeBoer, on how the conversation went with Jake Oettinger, following Thursday night's loss. And the fact that they hadn't spoken spoke volumes to me. So your take on the fact that he hadn't had a conversation with him, especially given what he said about him publicly post-game following Game 5.
Yeah, I found that crazy as well. It's wild. Maybe they all thought we need to cool off as well. But then they're all in there doing their end of season meetings, and I always think that's interesting in all these sports that they basically meet the next morning, so there isn't really a cooling off. So the idea that he'll meet the media for a goodbye and have yet to speak to Oettinger, it's wild. And it sounds like they both really have thick skin. It sounds like Oettinger said all the right things, but a guy like me has to wonder what happens next year in the playoffs when you draw the Edmonton Oilers again. And the first thing everyone does is say, wait a minute, didn't you just say like a year ago that you don't think this goalie gives you a great chance to beat these guys? And I don't know. I mean, Pete DeBoer's won a lot of games in this league and a lot of series. He's been on the right side of the playoff handshake line the fourth most times in hockey history. Now, that's impressive. Of course, it also should be noted that the other 9 guys in the top 10 list of most winning handshakes have all won Stanley Cups, and he hasn't. So there's good and bad to that stat. But that was crazy to me, Michelle. I couldn't believe it.
That makes 3 of us, I think.
Yeah, seriously. And you mentioned it. Titles do change how people are remembered in history. And we'll get into that a little bit more coming up on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, talking about how teams are remembered as history progresses. Stay with us.